meeting any sort of value 100% or 1/10% in any town. So we're not talking about how many acres every town needs to preserve to meet the land preservation goals of the state. What we're talking about is a set of high-level values that can be interpreted regionally, and if we start thinking that way, we'll be in a better position. So the first goal is targeted economic growth, where we want to enhance opportunities for attraction and growth of industries of statewide importance. We identify industries of statewide importance in this plan, and we lay the framework for an industry cluster economic development model, which basically tries to identify where these firms already exist and tries to layer on top of it, and this work is not done yet, where the infrastructure exists in the state, not just wastewater, but energy, water, and other cultural sorts of infrastructure, to get down to the places where we know these jobs are now, where we can grow those jobs, where those companies can innovate, can grow, and have spin-off opportunities so the state's economy can grow. The second goal is related to effective regional planning for these regions. We want to guide and inform regional planning with our set of values that include many of the smart growth types of principles we've seen in the past plans. We recommend establishing a criteria-based system for identifying priority growth investment areas where we can focus state resources that already exist on investing in that growth, and also offering regulatory flexibility in those areas that are properly suited for growth. We also talk about a transition in the third goal. The third goal is related to preservation and enhancement of critical natural resources. We talk about also coming up with some criteria that we can identify where are the places in the state that have those key environmental and cultural assets where we should prioritize investing to ensure that those assets get to continue. We want to provide for continued success of the state's land preservation programs. We argue for a dedicated source of land preservation funding. We don't say what that source is going to be, that's for implementation, but we do go on record saying that we think that it would be good for New Jersey to have a longer-term source of land preservation funding. We also recognize we're not going to do it all with public dollars, so we advocate for changes to the municipal land use law that will provide flexibility for local governments to get to our land preservation goals quicker and cheaper. Our fourth goal is the goal related to first state government, and then hopefully could translate and trickle down to local government. That's tactical alignment and getting to a cohesive state government. Executive Order 78 that the governor signed put together a steering committee of relevant state agencies in relation to physical and economic development. Required each of those agencies to put together a detailed implementation plan in relation to the strategic plan, so everyone will be able to see what those agencies are up to. We want to refocus the State Planning Commission for local government coordination. And once we have the state coordination part figured out and we're a better player, we want to try to see if we can put some more money where our mouth is and try to incentivize municipalities to take actions that are consistent with their local goals and objectives, and are also consistent with the state goals and objectives, so we can incentivize our willing partners to take steps that they may not take because they have fiscal constraints. We want to try to pool together as much discretionary resources that are available right now to make sure that the money that we have at this time that's being generated from tax revenue is being used as effectively as possible, and also not being used to go against the values we put forth under the second goal of the plan. I'm going to stop talking because I've talked too long, and I thank you for your patience. So we're going to get into the questions part.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay, just before you start, it may be tough to get the mic in the middle there, so if you could stand up and just speak. So
I think my
Sure.
Yep.
If it works, we'll get someone to take. You got it. Let me use
that one.
I want to know why did you get rid of the old plan? Are you going to do spot development? Are you going to use the funds as a slush fund once you get all the money? Where's the teeth? And where'd you do with the map? What happened to the map? I want to know where I'm going to put all my money in. Where will we get the money? And lastly, if anybody thinks that, from East Orange, New Jersey, And if anybody thinks I need to be social engineered, you can have a little talk in the back if you want. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You can let me know if I So when the plan's put in place, the map stays, and we're going to transition into this new system. So our goal for that transition is middle of 2013. We've got probably over 100 programs and regulations tied to the existing map that if we just kind of push it off the shelf and say go away, we would create organizational chaos for us and for the regulated community, which is not our goal. So we want to be smart about this, and we're going to transition. So the answer to the map, the plan says it stays in place to be transitioned. The process to get that new system in place involves a lot of democracy. We have a rule proposal that we're going to put on. On the table up there, we have an advance notice of rules, consistent with the governor's executive order, to have an advance notice before we get any further. So we think that's a common sense approach to developing new important policies in the state, which we appreciate that those are important. Discretionary funds will be identified in the context of the agency implementation plans, which will be available for public viewing. That money is already authorized to be spent. We want to spend it smarter to make sure we get a better bang for the buck for the public. The old plan, we don't think delivered the results the public expected. We listened through the cross-acceptance process, and we're making this change at this stage because we think New Jersey deserves a plan that it can actually be productive. The details of implementation, there's some strategies in there that we think are really important, but many of the actions that we're going to take, because this is a plan that's related to the state of New Jersey mostly, the actions will be identified in the department strategic plans, and you'll see that detail on implementation. So the meat will be there, so you'll be able to see what we're up to. That's how we're going to implement through our departments. Because we have a staff of 14. We have no budget. We don't preserve land through the state plan. We don't regulate through the state plan. Our feature is organization. And that we think by having our state agencies organized, working together, and implementing it seriously, we'll drive better results than the past plan. Did I get it? Everything?
Slush fund, you're gonna do the slush fund.
Those are discretionary funds identified by the departments that can be pooled together that we believe can effectively, there's very few resources in the state and issues in the state that can be put in a silo like one of our departments.
Can we really trust that fact, Don?
Okay. As I say, we may in this room disagree on the governor, but stay tuned. You're a resident, you're a taxpayer, you have every right to stay tuned and see what happens. But we expect it to be spent wisely, smarter than before.
Yeah, I'd like to address something today. Everything that you said up there sounds wonderful, but you guess what? I've been in this state 67 years. I was born and raised in Camden, New Jersey. I live in Marlton, New Jersey now. And let me tell you something. I don't need your people to tell me how I should think with my own mind. My Lord and Savior gave my own mind to think about things. I need your decisions. I got a township, I got a mayor, I got a council, that we should go through the work. I don't need the whole state, you guys, telling me how I should live in my town. Whether if I got a farm, if the cattle or something or whatever defecates in the water, you're gonna come over and tell me that that's not sustainable, that's against this, and you're gonna have an audit in my house to see if I got the correct dishwasher, if I don't have an energy saving, you gotta get it. And the solar heat, you gotta have on every roof before you sell your home. This is where you're heading, my man. It's like a dictatorship, and I don't like it. If you're thinking you're transparent, which you're not, because Obama said he was going to have a transparent presidency. I ain't seen nothing transparent. And you're talking about investments? Investment means raising my taxes. That's where you're going to get most of the money. And the private enterprises getting into this, they're the ones that's going to get the kickbacks and get the money.
Sir,
and they're going to have a contractor to do it all.
But I'd love to answer a question if you have.
Yeah, well, listen, I listened to you for about 15, 20 minutes. I only took 5.
This is the period for questions. You can make statements or comments after 7 o'clock, but we really want to answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir. You're next.
How much land does the state and the municipalities currently own?
The state and the municipal. I don't have those numbers readily available.
30%. 30%. How much more land does the state and the municipalities want to own?
Well,
70.
That's up to the municipalities.
right.
Well, how about, okay, it's up to the municipalities. So if we were to defeat the Green Acres resolutions in the townships and the counties, we could push back against the state, correct?
All those funds are voter authorized, and voters in the past 30 years have supported them every time. So you have every right. That's one of the
Okay.
democracy there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Could you ask DEP to explain how the plan affects their functional plans and regulations, provide a status report on where they are in aligning the DEP with the state plan?
well, as Dan mentioned, goal number 4 is to align those different agencies. So they're gonna examine the regulations, and identify where there's conflicts, where there's,
They're here, I just asked.
Well, believe it or not, we're really seriously trying to get the plan adopted before we start getting too far down the road for implementing.
Is
So
that
that
relevant to adoption of the plan? We need to know how, I look at it almost solely through the lens of environmental conservation. And knowing how that's gonna play out is instrumental to understanding how the plan will work. So, perhaps you'd like to speak to that?
it's a chicken or the egg thing. I mean, we don't have any predetermined outcomes about what is going to happen exactly in the functional plans. It's a highly nuanced field, as you know, highly detailed field, as you know, and we don't have any predetermined outcomes of what's going to change in the functional plans. That work has not been done.
yes, Mark.
Yes, Jerry, same question as last time. Not everyone here has lived in bureaucracy, so would you please explain for all of us what you mean by silo?
Silos, simply put, is sort of working in isolation from another entity. And in government, you have different agencies. And when we talk about silos, it's just happening, working within it's a metaphor for working in isolation, so you don't really know what the other agency is doing. And this has happened over the years, where one agency sort of built up their own regulations, their own way of doing things, separate from other agencies. We're trying to break those down and now have the agencies sort of streamline their operations, where they're all working together, not against each other, once they come out of those silos for the period when they overlap. So that's really what silos are, working in isolation. And it happens in businesses, corporations, any organization like that that has multiple departments that may have different functions within the larger entity.
And I think silos are impossible. I think we want to see over top of them. We're never going to totally break them down, because the statutory authorities are the statutory authorities, and which does create natural friction, like we talked about, that will never be completely unresolved between departments, because these departments have different jobs to do, and there may be points where they still butt heads even after we're done with the organization process here. But we think we can do a much better job. At least the silos will be lower to a point where they can see over top of them and work together.
Sir?
2 questions. Who is the actual author of this plan?
Well, our office with input from the different agencies.
And so, but who is the actual author of this? Who typed it out, put it together? Somebody had to, they took information, but somebody had to make the decision.
Yeah, like I said, there were a few individuals within the office who worked on it collectively. We would, each work on a section maybe, and, pass it around, we'd edit it. So it was really a collective effort between a lot of folks in the office.
One of the things is we keep talking about money, funding this thing, and it's out there. We're not talking about it. I think it's a major part of this plan, given the fact that the state is probably $110, $120 billion of unfunded liability right now that we have to deal with. So, and given the fact that we owe 30%, or the municipalities and government owns 30% of the land already, where are we getting this money? I think that should be a more important issue, because all the social issues and all the the environmental issues are important. But if we have no more money and we're out of money, the rest of it doesn't mean we're all going to know the street.
It's going to come from existing funds within each department's budget that already exists. There's going to be money spent on roads. It's going to be money spent on environmental projects. That money's going to be spent. We just want to make sure it's spent wisely and with the best return for the New Jersey taxpayers. So that's what this is going to do, identify existing funds within the agencies and use that to incentivize and also invest in projects that make sense for the taxpayers.
What made sense in all these years? Nothing.
Jeff, you're next.
I'm okay. We kind of answered it.
Okay. Does somebody have a question? Yes, ma'am.
I have several. According to the State Open Public Meetings Act, we are entitled to inspect and copy meeting minutes. Where are the meeting minutes for the previous meetings, the public interest
The minutes?
Meeting minutes. Do we have any meeting minutes? Or public inspect them? They were recorded?
Not yet, we don't have minutes yet. They're all being recorded. The minutes for them are not available yet.
When will they be available?
It's a new question.
Yeah.
Shortly, and listen, you have our contact information, and stay on top of us, we will deliver. And,
Where the data collected, last meeting, I asked you if the data were collected according to the 2000 census, actually that was in Newark, and you said yes. Now, why do you think data that was collected 12 years ago is still relevant today? And why have you not updated the plan for the 2010 census, which shows a great change in what the projections were slated for? Specifically, growth areas in the state haven't realized the growth that was projected from those 2000 numbers.
Well, Dave, I'll let you pick up on this, but I just want to say one thing about whenever a census is done, those census figures go to municipalities. And municipalities can challenge those numbers if they feel they're inaccurate or being undercounted. So a lot of municipalities, I know this because my municipality is one of them, who question the validity of it. So there's a certain percentage. So those numbers are liable to change. And they're not final, not that I know of. So there are census numbers and then there are final census numbers. So I don't know where other towns are in the process, but I can tell you that knowing a lot of elected officials, a lot of towns are questioning some of the census data. So it's a process you have to go through.
What you were saying earlier about process, the early cross certifications that were done, cross acceptance, were done, what, 8 years ago, 2004?
06. Yeah.
Are those opinions that were given at that time still relevant today?
Many of them are.
8 years ago.
Well, many of them.
A lot of things have changed. Our taxes have gone way up.
Well, let me answer your question. What's most relevant is the disagreement that the state of New Jersey wasn't organizing itself and not changing and evolving with the times. So that part is quite relevant still. So we basically have filtered out all those statements of agreements and disagreements, working with our counties, and we're going to be pushing forward the relevant comments to state agencies in the development of their agency strategic plans. So there's much of what was said to us from local government is still very relevant.
Okay, and just one more, thank you for indulging. Will you schedule more meetings? The resolution that the governor and lieutenant governor signed stipulated there should be at least 6 meetings. Based on the fact that every single meeting, people have asked for more meetings, and 1 per county has been asked for at every single meeting, will you schedule more meetings? Specifically, the 2 alternate dates that you already have planned, and possibly more beyond that. Will you do that?
We have passed that on to the administration, and as soon as I get an answer, I'll let you know.
Who makes that decision?
I have a contact. They run it up the chain. It's it's not somebody. I don't walk into the governor's office and say, "Gee, can we have more meetings?"
But
you have to go through
He's who makes
several.
that decision?
I'm sorry.
Is the governor who makes that decision?
I couldn't tell you for certain. It's his staff. He has a staff who handles this sort of scheduling, and we will have to get the okay from the administration. So after every meeting, we sort of give them an overview of what occurred, and that's the one sort of consistent question we sent over there. That there's been requests for more meetings.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question about the metrics in the plan. I saw stuff that, when you followed the links and looked at supporting documents, there were
John, I'm sorry, you may want to speak up a little bit, because I don't know if the folks over there can hear you.
Use the mic.
I'm curious about some of the metrics in the plan. I saw information about distances from transit and things like that, in reference to priority investment areas, and was curious about where those distances or the idea of moving people or building up housing close to rail lines or highways and things like that, where that idea was coming from, because a lot of us are more comfortable in a rural environment, and I'd just like to know, is it like the American Planning Association's ideas, or is it something else?
It's not a new concept to have development oriented to our transit network. Right? It's a kind of a very old idea, probably one of the oldest ideas, maybe a couple 100 years old actually. Much of what the impetus for that focus or niche in this plan is coming from the development community and the demands that are projected for development interest moving forward for the next generation of home buyer and the existing home buyers. We see resiliency in those markets right now in our data, and I think it's mostly coming from the private sector interest for developing in those areas, not some sort of snarky smart growth value.